Hi, I'm Michael. In this video, we're going to talk about the carrier requirements and guidelines if you're doing any kind of texting inside of your church. So the wireless carriers in the US have a group, or it's called an association. It's called the Wireless Association specifically, and the short for that is the CTIA. Okay, short for the Wireless Association. And that association is made up of all carriers in the U.S. and they enforce they enforce guidelines and best practices for doing any kind of texting on their networks, right? So in the last video, we talked about the law. The FCC made the TCPA a federal law, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Right, that's the federal law. But we also have to follow the guidelines because when you're doing any kind of texting, you're sending text to subscribers on Verizon or AT&T or any other mobile network out there. So they have their own guidelines of what you can, what you can't do when doing any kind of texting as an organization on their network. Okay, so this is who puts out the guidelines, the CTIA. Okay, so let's kind of cover some baseline, really kind of core important things to know inside of the CTIA rulebook, right? And so we can include a link, I'll include it right now, that has a full PDF to look at the CTIA rulebook. But what are some of the highlights that we need to know, that you need to know when you're doing any kind of texting? So one of the main components of the CTIA rulebook are opt-in requirements. Okay, so what do we need to do as a church when someone is opting in to receive messages from us? Okay, so for this example, for this video, we are the early church. Okay, so what do we have to, when I text in, let's say I'm visiting your church, the early church, right? I'm a visitor, and on Sunday morning, I'm texting in because I want to know a little bit more about the early church. I'm interested in maybe joining. What do you have to do during that transaction, right? During me joining, me opting in to receive messages from you? What needs to happen there? Well, first, you need to let me know your organization. What or who is this message coming from? Okay, so that's the first requirement when someone's opting in. The second requirement is you need to let me know, as the person who's opting in, you need to let me know that this is a recurring message program. So I'm not texting in on a Sunday morning and expecting one text back and that's it, right? That's the end of us texting back and forth, me as a visitor and you as a church. Likely, in almost all cases, I'm joining a list, okay? So you need to let me know that this is a recurring, that should be RECU, recurring message description, or this is a recurring message program. The third is you need to let me know how to opt out if I want to opt out. I would say that this is the most important component of the opt-in requirements, is letting the person know, hey, if you want to, if you move down the road or you don't go to this church anymore, here's how to opt out, right? So I can reply stop at any time and I automatically opt out. And then the last is letting me know that message and data rates may apply, which I think is pretty archaic, and I hope it changes soon. I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, so let's kind of put this into practice. So again, it's Sunday morning. I visit your church, the early church, and during announcements, you let people know, hey, if you're new here at the early church, we'd love to get connected with you. Pull out your phone and text early church to 94,000. Okay, so this would be a keyword, early church. And I'm texting to 94,000. This is a short code. So we have a number of different short codes here at ClearStream. If you're using ClearStream already, you might be using that number, or you might be using another short code. So I pull my phone, I text early church to 94,000. The first message I get is going to be the early church, : okay, so even just this first part, the early church, that is fulfilling this requirement. You're letting me know right off the bat, this message is coming from the early church, okay? : reply stop to opt out and help for help. That, of course, is fulfilling this requirement. Okay, so replies opt to opt out, help for help, that's required. Message frequency varies. Okay, that probably doesn't, it honestly doesn't make that much sense, but it is required. So you have to put it there. That's letting me know that I am going to be receiving messages from you on an ongoing basis, and the frequency is going to vary. So it's not pigeonholing you as a church to say you're going to be sending one message per week or 2 messages per month or something like that. You're letting me know you're going to be receiving messages and the frequency is going to vary. So that fulfills that requirement, the recurring message description. And then the last, which I think I personally hate, is this message and data rates may apply. You're probably familiar with a lot of this, especially this message and data rates may apply. If you've done any kind of, you've joined any kind of other texting program with another church or even some kind of business, you've probably seen that. That is required, and that basically lets the person know that it will use message. It will use a text message in their plan, and it will also use data. Okay, so it does cause confusion. I would argue it causes confusion to the end user, but that is a CTIA requirement. And that's because if you think about it, years ago, we used to have to spend $10 a month to add an additional 500 messages, text messages to our wireless plan. Nowadays, pretty much everyone has unlimited messaging and is getting more and more towards unlimited data, making this, I would argue, very soon, if not already, but very soon, completely irrelevant. So hopefully this will be changed. If those guidelines change, we'll of course not require that, but that is required. Okay, and so that of course meets the 4th requirement. So that's the first message that somebody's going to receive when they join your list. Or even let's say that you have a bunch of Connect cards, right? I fill out a paper Connect card and you put it into your church management software, like maybe use Planning Center. We directly integrate with Planning Center, put it in Planning Center, and that syncs into ClearStream. Okay, nothing happens. I as the visitor who filled out that Connect card, I don't receive a message when you sync me into ClearStream. But the first time you send me a message, I'm going to receive this first opt-in disclaimer message. Okay, again, this is a big requirement of the CTIA guidelines. So the first time someone interacts with you via text in ClearStream, they're going to receive this message. So the second message that I'm going to receive after I get this opt-in disclaimer is a message you wanted to send when I join as a visitor, right? I text in Early Church 94,000. I'm getting this message. The second message I'm getting is this message. The Early Church, thanks for visiting today. We'd love to connect with you. And then maybe you include a link to a form, right? Like a profile form. You can do that instead of ClearStream. And maybe we also trigger some follow-up messages, like an automated workflow. So this might be the first of 4 or 5 messages that I get over the next few weeks. Okay, we don't need to cover that right now. But here, I just want to kind of clarify that in every message that you're sending, right, whether it's an auto response from a keyword or you're sending out a message to, thousands of people, the first thing that is going to be included in your message is your church name, okay, because that is a CTIA requirement. They're very clear about that. You have to make sure that you're letting the person know who is sending the message. That'd be your church. And that's how the opt-in requirements for the CTIA would work when someone's texting into a keyword. The only thing I kind of want to cover, only other thing I want to cover, is when somebody is joining through, like on your website, through an online form or joining through a social media form or something like that. Right? You can kind of build these forms inside of ClearStream, and it might be a little widget on your website, and it says, hey, if you'd like to get updates from the Early Church, please enter your mobile number here. If you'd like to get text updates from the Early Church. So I enter my mobile number. Okay, I push submit. So instead of getting this message that we just covered and maybe the auto response and going through a workflow and whatever, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this. It's called a double opt-in confirmation. Again, this is a requirement of the CTIA. So when I push submit on that form, I'm going to get this message, the early church, reply yes to opt in. Okay, so if I reply yes, great, I've opted into a list, I'm now in ClearStream, and I receive this message. Okay, and then of course this message. So everything works like normal. But that's the only other time that it's going to be a little bit different, that it has this, what it's called a double opt-in confirmation. Okay, so that's required by the CTIA if someone joins your texting list through an online sign-up form. So hopefully this is helpful in kind of seeing what the requirements are for opting in, opting out, based on what the CTIA states. A couple other things, two other things. When on this stop, or on the opt-out requirements, that is what's required by the CTIA, but we also, like if someone replies with, like let's say I move, right? I'm in your list inside of ClearStream, and I move a couple years later. If I reply stop, cancel, in, unsubscribe, quit, there's a couple other keywords, I'm going to automatically be removed from your list. Nothing you need to do. But we go a step further at ClearStream. So if I move a couple years later and I say, hey, I've moved, thanks for letting me be part of the early church all these years, can you take me off this list? There was no clear opt-out keyword that I replied back with. Our system will still flag that message and mark it as an opt-out. Okay, so it's more of a manual process. Our team reviews flagged messages multiple times a day, and we'll remove that person. So even if someone is not clear on the opt-out, if they clearly reply with a long paragraph, of their life story, and then they say, hey, I'd kind of like to be removed from these messages, it'll still get flagged, they'll still be opted out. So we go a bit beyond just the requirements. Hopefully this was helpful in seeing what the guidelines are for texting inside of your church. Thanks.